Hello, and welcome back to the 5th anniversary kickoff month of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar Podcast. I'm your host, Jacob Elyachar, the chief content producer and writer of jakestick.com, a pop culture entertainment news website. If you're watching us on YouTube, please give us a thumbs up and please subscribe and help me feed that algorithm. If you're listening to any of our audio downloads, please give a 5-star rating. Please download this episode and more episodes as well. I could not have my 5th anniversary of my podcast without inviting this one of my all-time favorite guests. He is the host of the Mike Lewis podcast and, of course, my honorary little brother in podcasting. Please help me welcome back for his 3rd time around, Mike Lewis.
Jacob, thank you for having me back. It's an honor. Wow, 3rd time here. Imagine that. It almost feels like yesterday when I was making my first appearance, which was now over 3 years ago. I believe it was September of 2020. That was pretty much when I was in my first like four or 5 months of podcasting. And I've never, forgotten that as you having me on, because at that point in time, I was still on the newer side within this whole little bubble of the podcasting realm within reality TV. And so, I always that always stood out to me. You having me on and kind of giving me that platform very early on. So I've always appreciated that. So I'm, proud of all the things you've been able to do since then. And I'm glad that you and I are able to chat today again for your 5th anniversary.
Yeah, this is amazing. Mike, I'm so proud of all the growth that you have gone through. And it feels great pride to see you go up and interview some of the best that reality television has to offer, not just in the challenge realm, but like also Survivor and also some wrestling world as well.
Yeah, I've definitely tried to expand my horizons quite a bit since the last time. Even since the last time you and I spoke, because I believe our second conversation would have been I want to say, was it September of 2021?
It was a live conversation. I remember that.
Right. Yeah. So even since then, I've, expanded my horizons with some of the genres I've dipped my toes into. Did a little bit of Survivor, did a little bit of wrestling, even talked to some actors and actresses. So I've definitely tried to veer into some other avenues and kind of test myself both as, an interviewer, but also kind of see, what else is out there in terms of what people might be interested in, hearing from. So it's definitely been a bumpy, exhilarating, any synonym or anything synonymous with adventure has kind of been the best way I would describe this these last few years. So
yeah, it's amazing how much you've grown. It's just absolutely amazing. And however, you're still one of the kings of the challenge interviews, and like really, I think you're almost ready to take the title away from Scott and Derek. But don't tell them I said that.
I won't. But word travels fast, so you never know. They might hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Scott and Derek. You are the kings. However, you got to keep an eye out on Mike.
Hey, listen, it's always, I never view it as a competition that, because I think them and I have sort of taken similar paths, but they've obviously been here longer, and they kind of were almost in a sense the benchmark for a lot of people with starting their podcast. So they're almost in a sense sort of like I almost view them as kind of visionaries. Like they saw the market for this before anybody else did, and what they've built for themselves is very impressive, and they've done a great job not only with their podcasts, but they've expanded that into, live shows. So what they've done is incredible. I've tried to kind of take a little bit of a similar path, but in my own little spin. I kind of am more of just like a solo interviewer type of guy, and that's kind of been like my speed. I've just now started to dip into recaps a little bit more than I have in previous years, just to kind of, see what it's like. But they've done a really good job, and to kind of be featured in the same breath as them is, an honor.
I totally agree. And here's the thing. They throw the best live podcast. I have never seen a way for challenge fans to meet their heroes. Like I can still remember what the photo of Paige taking Paige of Most Likely to TikTok just taking a photo of her and CT after years. She's loved that man for years. And not to mention the fact that I was able to see Wes and Nehemiah and meet Mark twice and Brad twice, and people and build like a friendship with like Dan Walsh. And just not to mention to finally meet Derek, which was absolutely amazing. So I have to give them credit, and credit is due.
Yeah, they've done a really good job of kind of making this community in a sense. Because there was a community that existed prior to them, but I don't think that it quite took on a life that it did until they started expanding their podcast into live shows and live events. Because not only are they doing these events, for their podcast, but there is this, these events are essentially like meet and greets, like camaraderie. Anybody and everyone who's a challenge fan can come and just hang out with each other if they choose to at these events and meet people they've watched on TV for years. So it's definitely a great thing that they've built there.
Absolutely. We would not be here without Challenge Mania. But however, we're not here to talk about Scott and Derek's continued success. We're here to talk about you, my friend.
Uh-oh. What are we going to talk about today?
So I got to talk to you about some of your interviews in the challenge world. So let's get started with JP Andre, who's been very quiet since he debuted on War of the Worlds 1. But however, when he was on your podcast, he called out CT while he partnered with Natalie. And he also revealed his potential future. So what did you think about JP's visit?
I was really excited for that one, and it was one that I had been trying to do, actually, believe it or not, for a couple of years before that. I believed him and I had spoken during even during COVID time, and it took probably about a year and a half, almost 2 years to kind of set that up. And the reason why I was excited about it was because he never really spoke publicly after his appearance on the challenge regarding his time on the show. And he made sort of a splash in the sense that when he called CT out, it had like a ripple effect on that season to where CT's never used to leaving early. And whether it was him intentionally or not, or inadvertently, he caused CT's exit, and then CT went on to, win the next season after that. So I was curious to see kind of what JP might have had to say about the whole thing. And I think that there's now, with the expansion of how many different countries and avenues that they've dipped into casting people, I'd be interested to see sort of how he would do on the show if he ever got invited back. Because I think it's safe to say, the show has definitely taken a direction into more of like an international sport. And the guy looks like $1 million. He's played soccer before. I think he would be a really good fit if he were to ever come back. And that move of calling CT down, to me, shows that he's willing to take big moves and big risks and big swings. And if anybody who's heard me kind of cover this current season of the challenge, you'll know that I've been pretty critical of sort of how the men on the show have chosen to play this game. I feel like they're holding back a lot, with the exception of Corey, of course. I feel like a lot of the guys have been playing a little bit of a scared game and sort of laying back and not making any real game moves. And I think we need more men on the challenge that are willing to make really big game moves and do some stuff to really spice up the show.
I totally agree. And besides, when you mentioned soccer, I think Horacio, and I think I would love to see JP and Horacio, and I definitely think he would be a very strong ally for Jay as well. And another person who's taken out CT early.
They're both in kind of a elusive category. Obviously, Jay a little bit more so because he had actually one-on-one beaten CT in eliminations. That was, obviously holds a little bit more weight. But yeah, no, you definitely hit it on the head. I think JP would, if JP was on the show, I feel like he would be something similar to Horacio. But in fact, I actually feel like JP might play a more bold game than Horacio might.
Wow, and I definitely think a lot of Horacio people will not be very happy with that. But I definitely see that.
I like Horacio. He's gonna be a challenge champion one day. He definitely brings a certain level of competition to the show. Yeah, he's a great
athleticism
athlete.
too.
Yeah, he's a great athlete. I just want to see a little bit more from him on the social aspect of things. That's all.
I agree completely with you. Agree with you on that. So hopefully we see JP and Horacio at the same time on the same season in the future.
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right, you marked a big milestone, so I want to congratulate you on entering year 3 of your podcast, and you brought Queen V to the podcast, and Queen V did not hold back. She talked about her return to Dirty 30 and why she waited until All Stars 3 to make a comeback again. And also, she also revealed her challenge for Mount Rushmore, which caused a lot of stir up in social media.
Yeah, it definitely did. Obviously, as you know, Mount Rushmores are subjective, but I think, with how the fan base has kind of grown and how the show's definitely broken down in a way that it wasn't, let's say, 10 years ago, fans might have a little bit more of a, protective nature when it comes to their opinions and who they feel is the greatest and all that. So it's definitely bound to cause some stir in the community, but I think that for me personally speaking, the reason why I had Veronica for that specific milestone was, if we're just talking in its entirety, I feel like she's, for my personal view, the female face of the show. If we're talking just longevity, she's been in every single era. She's seen it all from start to finish, and she's shaped the game because, she's shown that you can play this game without being like an overly physical threat. Like, we've seen women in the past that are really great physical competitors, but Veronica showed that in a social aspect, she knows how to play the game and can also provide entertaining television as well. And she's definitely a pioneer on this show. And she's also somebody that doesn't do a whole lot of interviews either. So for me to go and get her was a big grab. So
I think having Queen V on your shows marks you as officially as a stand, as like a challenge historian, or a challenge know-it-all. Like, for example, like Rob Cesternino and Stephen Fishbeck, we'll get to later, are know-it-alls a Survivor. But like, for example, like a top historian, Mike, you're setting yourself up to be a top historian.
Well, I appreciate that. I would hope so. Anytime, somebody, would refer to me or view me in that light is, nothing short of an honor. I mean, so I definitely appreciate those words, Jacob.
You're so welcome. Another well-received interview on YouTube was Brad's interview. He talked about the impact of real world San Diego, and not to mention his fights with 2 heavy hitters, Brad, Darrell, and Landon.
Yeah. For anybody that doesn't know my backstory, Brad was actually a very pivotal figure in why I started my podcast to begin with, because, I want to take it back to maybe like a month and a half before I started my podcast. I had received a cameo on my birthday, and this was during March of 2020, very early March. So this would have been probably about 2 weeks before the lockdown started. I'd gotten a cameo from Brad for my birthday, and because Brad's probably one of, if not my favorite challenger, or at least, this is me speaking through the lens of a fan at the time, before I started covering it. So he was probably like my favorite challenger, and I received a cameo from him, and he gave some just really great words of life advice. And so like that sort of served as like a turning point for me, because even growing up, I was always interested in, it was mostly YouTube was what I was interested in. It was never really like, I want to start a podcast. The podcast thing was something that interested me over time when I was trying to figure out my niche itself. But it was always like, I just wanted to make content to put on YouTube and be recognized by it, or recognized for it rather, by people. That was always my intention. And it just so happened that a passion of mine at the time kind of coincided with my other passion. And so, yeah, that's kind of the genesis of what made me want to start the podcast. And then obviously, 2 years later after I've started it, got to interview Brad and have him on. I told him what that meant to me. And yeah, that interview, and too, I loved that interview. He was a fun guest. He was very honest and candid, fun to talk to. And hearing all about Real World San Diego and how he got on the show was something that really interested me. So
I gotta say, Brad is definitely probably one of the best OG men out there,
oh,
and very that has interacted. I've never seen anyone interact with the fans like Brad has.
he's definitely someone that gives back for sure to the, audience and all the people that support him. I've always thought of him as a class act. So
Absolutely. So your 200th episode featured one of the challenge's most important people. I'm talking about Beth. So what did it mean to have Beth return for this milestone episode?
Well, Beth was somebody, again, too, who doesn't do a whole lot of podcasts or interviews. She's somebody that has been sort of like the Bigfoot in a sense with trying to get a hold of, I can think of some other people that too might fit under that category, but Beth's certainly one of them. And I mean that in the kindest way possible, Beth, if you ever see this. Yeah, she was somebody, again, who similarly to Veronica you can't tell the story of the history of the show without talking about Beth. I mean, for better or for worse, sometimes she might get called the villain, but she definitely has served her time on the show well and has made a name for herself and sort of marked her history on this show. She's, whether you love her, you hate her, undoubtedly she gets you talking about her. She's fun to watch on screen, and getting her for that 200th episode, I mean, she definitely brought it as a guest. She was very honest, and it was nice to hear her background as well. And I actually think that after doing that interview, I feel like she does get sometimes a bad rap on the show. I mean,
I know what you're thinking about, and I gotta say, Beth is amazing, and I love that she and Jon have started a podcast. It's an amazing show.
Yeah, they've got great chemistry. They're sort of yin and yang. They kind of complement each other well. Jon's sort of like a diplomat, and Beth's got her own, spice to her, but they complement each other well, for sure. I'm proud of them.
And I gotta say, they're the two founding members of reality television. If there was a reality TV Hall of Fame, Jon and Beth should definitely be there on the first two ballots.
Yeah, they've really paved the way for pretty much everybody that's followed.
Speaking of everyone who has followed and is known to be polarizing, our dear friend Paulie Calafiore. This was 2023 was a huge year for him. I'm so proud of him. We both had and I got to say this. I want to say, Paulie, thank you so much for your compliments that you gave on Mike's interview about me and Paige and you. It's like the three of us have done amazing things. So, Paulie, thank you so much for trusting us to tell your story.
Yeah, I echo those same sentiments. That's another thing too, is Paulie never lost sight of the people that supported him during his sort of dark times when he was off the show. And, I felt bad that entire time because Paulie, through those 3 seasons, whether you loved him or you hated him, he brought a level of, like I said at the beginning, he provided as a male challenger on this show, sort of something that lacks in these past few seasons. He brought competition. He got people talking. He was trying to actively play the game smart and socially and politically. And we missed that presence on the show. And, he kind of got the rug pulled out from under him, I thought, during that time period, and unfairly got removed for a few years. And this conversation with him and I was the first one we ever did with him now back in the fold. And I loved every minute of it. I'm glad to see him back in. And, if all things kind of, work out the way I hope they do, hopefully if there's a season 40 on the horizon, me and, or not me, Paulie and Cara Maria will be on season 40. Hey, me too, maybe. Who knows?
Believe me, I got to say this. I told Derek this when I'm on, and Paulie this. If they ever do challenge podcasts and they do like voice versions of it, I am officially screwed Because if Wes picks me, Derek picks me, or Paulie picks me, I'm screwed.
Hey, Jacob, come on. I've seen you posting on your CrossFit on Instagram. Come on.
But like, here's the thing. Paulie, one of my guests that who's been a huge important guest for me. Wes, we bond. We're both from the same area. Derek, my honorary older brother in podcasting. I don't know who I would go with as my team captain.
Yeah, you've got quite the choices there. You can't please everybody.
And those three are known to have big, long memories.
Right, exactly.
That's good. Like, believe me, I really hope that it'd be very interesting if they had all the bloggers and podcasters on do a challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, we're saying this here. Ride or die.
Yeah, okay. I like where this is going.
Ride or die. Ride or die. So we'll form our own alliance.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking of alliances, and we got to talk about this, unfortunately, this bad, awful fire known as Battle for a New Champion. We are more than half through season. I came on your podcast in September to talk about this. Oh boy, I got a lot of words, but I want to hear your thoughts first.
So I'm a little conflicted because I kind of took 37, 38 off and like sort of mentally exited midway through 36. I hadn't really liked the direction in which the show was going, but I came into this show 39 with sort of an optimistic point of view, sort of open to seeing where it went. I like it better than the past 3 seasons, but for me still, it kind of feels like it's not hitting the mark quite entirely. But I do enjoy that the daily challenges have gotten a little bit more on the less extreme side, and they've relied less on like explosions and like tried to make it feel like more of a reality show rather than like a sport, because that's initially what gravitated me towards it, was a reality competition that was fun. And they've tried to incorporate those elements a little bit more, which I appreciate. But I mean, I just kind of, we need more guys on the show that are willing to make game moves, I think. That's really what it's lacking. The women on the show have at least tried to make gameplay moves. I appreciate that. There's some people that I feel like are breaking out for themselves, which is Raven's one of them. I feel like she's really starting to come into her own. Nerese feels to me like somebody who could possibly be like, you know, a mainstay. And then on the guy side, I definitely feel like as of right now, Corey Lay is somebody who has kind of almost in a sense been, for me, the MVP on the guy side. But in the future, with season 40 coming up, I would like to see sort of a legacy type season, bring in some people from the past, try to get those ratings back up, and do an experiment. Put them side by side, see how the ratings do, see how the quality is received, and ultimately that'll dictate where the franchise goes. But season 40 is going to be a big one to sort of dictate the future of this show. But yeah.
I agree with you on that, because I don't know if I told everybody this, but this is the first time I'm telling everyone this. I am taking the rest of 39 off covering and interacting on social media. I thought long and hard about it. The reason why I'm doing this is, unfortunately, the real world and the reality TV world blended together in a horrible way for me. Asaf is one of my favorites. I love his drive. He's been on so many reality TV shows. I respect the hustle. But at the same time, a lot of people have viewed him as a villain. And a lot of those attacks against his character have near the border of anti-Semitism. And since October, and I apologize for this being political really quickly, but ever since the October 7th Ithral Masror, I have been on edge. Mm-hmm. And because I view myself as a Jewish man, and because Asaf is like, there's Asaf, he's the only Jew on the cast, and there are only 3 active Jewish people on the cast: Anissa, Asaf, and Rachel Robinson. So I really want to beg and bury and Paramount to please add more Jewish people on the cast, because this would not have happened. My exit from 39 would not have happened if there were people that would like train the cast, and especially after October 7th, because I love this show, but it's feeling like Big Brother All Stars again, and that was a very toxic season for me to cover.
Well, I'm sorry that you have to go through this from viewing a show. I mean, yeah, I think anytime you watch one of your favorite shows, you should be there almost with the intent for it to sort of serve as like an escape from your normal day-to-day life. But anytime that that escape then ultimately brings you more stress, is kind of like when you kind of feel like you probably should tap out. So, if that's what you feel like you need to do, I completely support, your decision.
Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate it. Like, I still want to have Asaf on. I still want to have a longtime friend of this podcast on, Jay. I want to have Michelle. I love to talk with Nerys and Raven as well, and also with Ed. But however, some of the cast, and maybe even Emmanuel, but some of the cast members from this cast, you lost my stand card.
Wow, that's quite the declaration there, Jacob. So,
well, I gotta say this, Corey, you have not lost my stand card. But however, the thing is, the rest of the other cast members I did not mention, I'm sorry. And there's a couple of people in particular that I would love to have words with, but however, that would definitely ruin my reputation. And right now, this fifth, I do not want anything to let a toxic show and toxic situation go before with my love for my career and for this passion of the art form known as podcasting.
I couldn't have said it any better, Jacob. Got to keep doing what you're doing and stay on your path.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. So, but guys, whenever Challenge 40, whenever USA 3, and hopefully, and I hope you're listening, All Stars 4 is, I will be back.
There we go. Woohoo. That's something to look forward to, because I think us as Challenge fans, we're going to get, I won't say what I know, but what I will say is expect to get entertained quite well when it comes to All Stars 4 and season 40. I'll say that.
Absolutely. And I really hope that's the USA 3, because I got to say 2 was so superior to 1.
Oh, yeah, I have heard that. Unfortunately, Jacob, I actually didn't, tune in the entire way through, but, not because I didn't hear good things, but just because, I wasn't quite sure, as in general, I was kind of plugged out of the challenge. So, I kind of came back this current season rather. So I would love to maybe go back and revisit that. I did hear some good things about it.
Awesome. So hopefully, I got to ask you this, since we're bringing up all 3 of these things. With these 3 things, can the challenge turn things around? Why or why
not? They can turn things around. What they got to do is, I think you got to go back to your roots. And I don't mean this in the sense of casting people from the past. Eventually, people got responsibilities and other career obligations. But I think that you got to do a more extensive search when it comes to the casting side of things, because a lot of the people that are on the show, when you're in the casting process, you might think, oh, this person's really fun to talk to. They, probably would be really good on the show. But that doesn't necessarily mean that because you like them in a one-on-one setting that's going to translate well onto TV. We need people that are willing to play the game. Like Paulie is a perfect example. We need more guys like him. So I think when it comes to casting, they need to do a more extensive search when it comes to casting people who are willing to make bold game moves and actually actively play the game. You definitely have to sprinkle in some mix of old school people, and that doesn't mean CT every time, but what it means is be a little bit different. Don't cast the same people, because when you cast the same people season to season, like we saw through, season 36 through 38, which, they got nicknamed the Vacation Alliance, they're just able to work with each other and then be like, oh, let's just take out all these new people because we don't have to worry about anything. We'll be back next season anyway. We'll just work together. Back in the day, people didn't have that assurance that they're going to be back every season. So they would actively play the game in that moment to win that very season, not worried about what season they're going to be doing down the line. And I think it's hurt the overall gameplay. So in that regard, I'd like to see people like Kellyanne, people that we don't see all the time, but on like a season 40 setting. And then, when it comes to like the daily challenges, I like the direction that they've taken. I would keep the daily challenges sort of the way they've been on 39, but incorporate some more fun ones in between too, like not all super serious, bring back some, funny trivia stuff, some other fun stuff that like the audience at home watching can see themselves and envision themselves doing. And then when it comes to format, I think that they need to go back to a simple format. I think a paired season, if done right, could do really well. But like with the theme and the pairs sort of centered around something that's fun or easy to follow. I know a lot of people for years were hoping they would bring back a Rivals or X's. I feel like they veered away from that as a genre. I feel like maybe that's something they're not interested in, but I think if they really wanted to get bold, you've got a lot of, ammunition with some people that are X's or Rivals that you could potentially get a good season out of. So they definitely need a good format that's easy to follow as well. And, probably sounds like a lot that I just spilled there, but I think that those are all things that if they execute on, they could do a very good job of putting a good season together.
Absolutely, 100%. Because the thing is, I'm just thinking of like fun moments. I remember watching one of the dailies from All Stars 1 with Arisa trying to melt the music, praying to the ancestors to melt the ice.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we need. You need more fun stuff like that, but you also need people like that to, be funny like that. And
like the thing is, I'm like, so like I was thinking about, speaking of funny people, like where's Amanda? Where's Shane? Don't be afraid to get wild cards or loose cannons on the show. Like I would love to see Rogan back. Like I know a lot of people like Joss and Marie have said they're done, but there are people that they're connected with that are like perfect. Can't be brought back.
I would love to see Rogan back. He was very underrated in his short time on the show. Amanda would be really great. Like you said, we need some more people like that.
And besides,
reason for Amanda with it being like people who haven't won before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think and also I was like, where was Shane during all this? Where was Paul? There were some people I said, why didn't Amanda, Paulie, Corey Wharton, Michaela, all the people that were Tyler Crispin, the people that should have been on the cast, that was on USA 3 with Michelle, why couldn't they just take a simple plane and go to join the cast?
Yep, I'm with you.
Yeah, so anyway, I really hope that because the thing is, I really hope that Vernon Murray does a lot of incredible stuff for 40 because it's a big season. And
they got a big opportunity ahead of themselves to do something. Something's on the horizon. I can feel it.
I know. So speaking of personalities, you did what I'm so proud of you is that you went away from the challenge and actually ventured into the worlds of Survivor and the wrestling world. And I'm so proud of you for doing that. And I told you off camera, and I'm telling you right now on camera.
Yeah, for those that don't know, actually, Survivor was something I actually, right around the same time, but slightly before I started watching the challenge, was actually sort of like the first, like, I guess, quote unquote, reality thing that I ever watched. It was only a few seasons, but I really liked it from when I was in it. I think I watched Gabon, Tocantins, and then it was Samoa with the three, and then Heroes versus Villains. So I watched 4 seasons. And, I saw that there was a large following for it. A lot of challenge fans also watched it. So I was like, why not dip into that? and it got some pretty well-known figures within the show right off the bat. So,
all righty. So speaking of that, you started this with a familiar person, Ryan Ulrich, which I did not know you guys were connected.
Neither did I. You want to know how I found out? We were both at a family function. This would have been about a couple months after his Survivor season aired. I knew who he was, but I didn't know him like I didn't know him personally yet at that point, but I knew of him because obviously the show. And I saw him walking by at a function. And I'm sitting down, and then I was like, I turned to somebody. I'm like, what is he doing here? And they're like, he's your second cousin. I was like, him? I'm like, that guy? He's on Survivor. I'm like, that guy. And they're like, yeah. And then that's how we, kind of got acquainted. Acquainted. So that's how I found out we were cousins. His dad is my mom's godfather. So.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. So I got to say, you and Ryan did a lot. I loved hearing to him about his law school experience and how he used Survivor in job interviews. And I also find it fascinating that he's not watching a show anymore and like providing commentary and like how he views the whole former castaway now turned career path.
Well, Jacob, I mean, I do get what you mean. However, from speaking to a lot of people in the past couple of years, I've also come to realize there is sort of like the double-sided coin when appearing on TV, because sometimes, in the case of like, let's just say like a Bananas or even like, I don't know, like a Cara Marie, like some people really love the time. They make a name for themselves. They parlay that time into great things within that genre. But then other people don't have like the greatest experiences. And sometimes it could bring up old, like, either trauma or just bad memories. And I think for Ryan, that's sort of like the case there. I'm sure he definitely looks on it like somewhat fondly, but like he also definitely has like some regret, and not regret that he did the show, but maybe like regret in the sense of like how it ended.
I agree completely. I agree completely. So you got a really good player. I'm talking sugar. Gabon heroes versus villains. And she was so fascinating. I loved hearing about her refusal for taking on bots on social media for followers, and not to mention her casting story, and also how she's been known to look like a Marilyn Monroe lookalike.
Yeah, she definitely has she sticks out very well. I'll say that within the she's got this aura about her that's kind of like, infectious, with both her appearances being like almost like a Marilyn Monroe doppelganger in a sense. And her time on the show, she always was just kind of like a firecracker in a sense. So she stood out to me. I had to get her on. She was one of the stars of that season, I thought. Gabon was just a fun season.
I know it should be. I know it's probably one of the best old school seasons if we divided up Survivor from like old school, new school, and now current era.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, so speaking of which, I'm a little jealous because he's one of my all-time favorites of Survivor to play. We're talking about Stephen Fishbach, one of the Token Teams runner-up, and I'm glad that he shared about how he used that on People use that to work on and cover People magazine, and how he and Rob are pretty much who's like an honorary older brother figure and mentor for this podcast. Without Rob Cesternino, would not be in my podcasting chair. But I was very surprised to hear about how rough of the experience he had on the island.
Well, I mean, I could probably, I would say I can imagine, but I can't imagine, being on that island, because that had to have been miserable. But yeah, no, he's definitely made his mark within that community. I mean, the fact that like he went on the show in, I believe, 2008 maybe, and then like is able to parlay that into now what is essentially like a career in a sense, and that he covers this thing in a way that maybe it wasn't covered back then. Like the show, and just with social media, even the challenge too, the way that there's communities for this stuff now, and the way it's covered sort of in a way that like we see people on the news and television cover sports is incredible. there's so many outlets out there for people to, build something for themselves and just cover this and create a brand, create like just even like you, Jacob, like, you've kind of experienced it. Like there's so much utilities out there for people to just kind of go make a mark.
Absolutely, my friend. It is definitely interesting to make a mark. And I never thought that I'd be covering America's Got Talent for this long. This is my 11th year covering AGT.
Yeah, that's another one I watched when I was younger too, for a little bit.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I never thought I would have the opportunity to be in the same Zoom room and ask questions have Howie Mandel, Heidi Klum, Terry Crews, and Simon Cowell answer my questions.
Listen, you've got another person that you got to ask questions to that I'm actually kind of jealous of you for, and that's Trish Stratus, because that's probably a natural segue since you brought up wrestling. When I was about 5 years old, I had like such a big crush on Trish Stratus. I would always have her action figure growing up. Like, because when there's WWE action figures, I had her action figure when I was young. So yeah.
I gotta say, I'm so excited for the newest season of Canada's Got Talent. I really hope and pray that I get to have Trish return to the podcast. But however, I would love for the most for her to be interviewed by you, my friend.
Listen, that'd be great. When is that season coming up?
I believe in March, probably. March is Kansas City. It will return for City TV. Toronto, I got to go talk with my friends over there. So hopefully I will be able to do interviewed in my favorite acts from that season. Hopefully speak with Allie or Trish again. Or maybe even Cardinal or Lily.
Did they film that already, or is that going to be filmed live?
I think they filmed it already, but however, they always have a live final portion of it.
Okay. Cool. Well, you're gonna have to keep me updated on that. Maybe I'll even tune in, but definitely gotta keep my eyes peeled for her, especially.
All right, we gotta talk about one of the wrestlers that might have faced off against Trish. I'm talking Melina Perez, and I just finished watching the interview before we got on here, and I gotta say it was very amazing to hear her journey to the WWE and the Royal Rumble because I've seen wrestlers and how they can be some of them can be very haughty toddy, but Melina, oh my God, I loved hearing her story. She was so down to earth when she was talking about her experience.
Yeah, I mean, she's a very sweet person, but she's so personable too. Is very generous with her time and just very candid and open. She was somebody who I watched when I was younger, and I always viewed her as she had this aura and presence to her, very similar to how Trish did. One of Trish's best opponents, even in WWE. She has an aura to her, and that's why I was really stoked when I got that interview to happen. And she was very honest with her experiences. I would like for her to. She does get her recognition, but I would love for WWE themselves to give her recognition sooner than later, in the sense of I would love nothing more than for them to, even in this upcoming Hall of Fame in early April, for them to induct her into their Hall of Fame, because she deserves it.
Absolutely, she does. So speaking of guests, are there any more dream guests that you've been saying, I want this sort of a castaway, I want this challenge person, I want this wrestler, or outside of the box, or outside of those fields? Who else would you like to have sit down and experience the Mike Lewis podcast?
Well, Jacob, I mean, 2023 definitely taught me a lot. I started the year kind of on a little, I had taken because my schedule at this time a year ago had taken a toll on me. I was down in the dumps. I had lost my passion for it. I had no time on my hands. I wondered to myself, I was like, am I done? I seriously asked myself, I was is this it? I was really wondering. I was wondering when I was I almost, in a sense, I hate to say it, but I even lost my confidence. I really did. I lost a lot of, what once built me up and kind of drove me to do this. But, after discovering myself again earlier this year, getting some of the interviews that I did with Veronica, with Anissa, Emily Schramm, all the various WWE, women and men that I had on, it kind of ignited a fire in me. And we even see recently, I had gotten, with 39 cast members, but also some other big people such as Beth, Paulie. It ignited a fire in me and made me passionate about this. And it made me start to gain my confidence back. And so I've told myself that in 2024, no goal for me is too small. No goal for me is too much. I'm going to aim and shoot for the stars, and I'm going to try to expand my horizons both within the challenge world, within other avenues, and I'm going to aim for things that might seem like a tall task, but why not? I only have one life. I've only got one opportunity. Why not just go for it? There's other things that I've gained interest in, like, I've become a really big fan of the Scream movie franchise. David Arquette is somebody that I'd love to interview. Why not try and make that happen? Coral. I mean, I've almost made that happen in the past. She's sort of like the white whale within the challenge world. Who's to say that might not happen? Paula from the challenge. Why not get her to have happen? I mean, there's other wrestlers, I would love to be actually sitting, front seat to maybe even like a wrestling press conference at some of like the WWE's actual press conferences. Like, no goal for me in 2024 is going to be seen as too much. And I fully intend, Jacob, to, try to continue to take this challenge world by storm and maybe other worlds by storm as well.
I totally agree with you, my friend. I'll be right, and I'll be cheering you on, my friend. And I'm so glad that you have your passion back. I'm so glad you got your fires relit and you have everything going for you. I cannot wait to see what the rest of this year gives for you.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a shorter interview coming out, I believe, tomorrow with Darrell, who is somebody who I'm hoping to get even a longer form version with in the future. He's somebody that's also been on my bucket list. And then another interview with somebody who you know very well from outside of real world is Judd Winnick, who is a very famous comic. And I'm hoping to have that released by the end of 2023. I'm imagining so, probably sometime next week. And then, I believe next week we've got Christmas on Monday, but that marks the final week of 2023. And you never know who might turn up on the, show. We might have some other things up our sleeves that, I'm not saying that I know anything, but we'll see once next week comes. You never know.
I know. I'm going to be very excited for you and this is going to be fun. And I cannot wait to listen to that Judd Winnick interview. Judd's one of my all-time favorite writers. He's the one, for those of you who don't know, Judd is the one that brought Jason Todd, the long-deceased Robin, back to the living in Batman comics. And that caused a huge firestorm in media. But I got to say, his Under the Red Hood story arc is one of my all-time favorite Batman arcs of the 2000s. So I cannot wait to hear from him.
Jacob, I'm glad you told me about this because I have a friend actually who, before you even brought it up to me, was like a really huge Jason Todd fan and would always bring him up. So, thankfully, you were able to tell me this because I was able to then relay that to my friend, and he was happy to hear that I talked to Judd about it. So
awesome. I cannot wait to hear what Judd has to say. So, last question. Are you ready?
Yep.
Where can I find you on social media, and how can they download or stream the Mike Lewis podcast?
Wow, this is the hardest question so far. On social media, you can find me on Instagram. I'm Mike Lewis Podcast. That is all one word. Twitter, I'm Mike Lewis Pod, all one word. And then, wherever you find your podcast, either Apple or Spotify, it's Mike Lewis Podcast, but that's with spaces, obviously. And then for me, my main coverage comes probably via my YouTube. That's where my bread and butter is. And that is also Mike Lewis Podcast as well. So subscribe, like, it all helps out greatly. You've got what's now is over 200 videos worth of interviews to kind of navigate through. And then you've got also some recaps as well from past episodes and seasons. So definitely no shortage of stuff to check out. So
awesome, guys. So, guys, if you missed an episode of the Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar podcast, you can check out our channels on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, Spotify, and Spreaker. It's Jake's Take with Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. Now, are you on social media? Because I'm on social media too. Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube. Jacob Elyachar, JACOBELYACHAR. And guys, if you missed my original interviews with Mike, head to jake-chick.com for you to catch up with see all of our evolution of our interviews and find out what's been going on with America's Got Talent's Fantasy League and who found out who won the Masked Singer Season 10. All on jake-chick.com. Mike, thank you so much for being part of my 5th anniversary celebration. I'm so proud of you. You are amazing, and I cannot wait to see what 2024 has in store for you.
Jacob, it was an absolute honor. I look forward to see what 2024 has in store for the both of us. Till next time, I guess, right?
Absolutely, my friend. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, have a great one, everybody. Goodbye.